Alright guys, welcome back, 5th grade math. Here we go, continuing decimals. Today we're going to review a lesson that we did back when we started multiplying whole numbers. We talked about patterns, but today we're going to add the patterns in multiplying decimals. So today I can recognize patterns in multiplying decimals, okay? Alright, so on page 23 of your journal, we did this lesson. We did part of this lesson. Today we're going to add the decimal part. And so open your journal, page 23. Pause the video till you get there. When you get there, go ahead and unpause it and watch the video as you go. Put your pencils down, markers down, just watch the video. Alright, so let's start with the easy side. 1 times 3 in 1900. Now we know from 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade that whenever you multiply a number by 1, you just have one group of that number, so it's just that number. So 1 times 3 in 1900s is just 3 in 1900s, right? Okay. Well, when we talked about patterns, we learned that when we multiply by 10, we move that decimal to make room for a 0. We manipulate that number in a way. We're making the number bigger, and we move the decimal. So we're making the number bigger by moving the decimal one place to the right. Why do we move it one place to the right? Because we have a multiplier that has 1 0 in it. So we move that decimal one place to the right. 1 0, one place to the right. So now I have 31, and the decimal is behind that 1 and 9/10. So we move that decimal one place to the right. Okay? Well, no different if I multiply by 100. Now I have 2 zeros. Okay? I'm still moving it to the right to make the number bigger, but this time I move it 2 places to the right because I have 2 zeros. So now my decimal is behind the 9. So 319. Notice my answers are getting bigger because I'm multiplying by a bigger multiplier. So if I multiply by 1,000, we have 3 zeros. We're making the number bigger, moving it to the right 3 places. 1, 2, but this time I made room for something. What did I make room for? That's correct. We made room for a 0. So now I have 3190, 1, 2, 3, comma, 3,190, and that decimal is still at the end of that 0. Okay? Alright, so let's flip it a little bit. Let's just change the orders a little bit. So 45 and 6/10 times 1, I'd still have one group of 45 and 6/10. Okay? Multiplying by 10, if I'm multiplying by a whole number 10, I'm making the number bigger, moving it one place to the right. So that decimal's here, one place to the right, puts it behind that 6, gives me 456. I really don't want to go too fast, but this is a review, and I don't want you to overthink this. We're just moving that decimal, manipulating that number by moving the decimal because we're making the number bigger. So we're making room for either a 0 or just moving that decimal. So if I multiply by 100, how many times do I move the decimal? That's right, twice. Which way? To the right, exactly. Move it to the right to make the number bigger, 2 places. So 1, 2, this time made room for a 0, absolutely. So now I have 4, 5, 6, 0, the decimal on the end. Alright, 4,560. Now we're going to make the number even bigger because we're multiplying by 1,000, a number with 3 zeros in the factor multiplier. So we'll move it 3 places to the right, make the number bigger. So 1, 2, 3. This time I made room for exactly 2 zeros. So just copy the number 4, 5, 6, and then 2 zeros. And where's that decimal? At the end. So where would my comma be? It's a big whole number. 1, 2, 3, comma. 45,600. Again, just a little review from what we did on page 23 when we first started multiplying whole numbers. Now we're just multiplying by decimal. It doesn't change. We're still moving that decimal, just like we did in the lesson. Alright, so if you need to rewind that, watch it again, feel free to do so. We're just moving the decimal to the right to make the number bigger by manipulating that decimal. I'm going to go ahead and go on. So now look at these numbers. What is different this time? What do you notice that's different? That's right, we're multiplying a whole number by a decimal that is less than 1. Okay, this time we're multiplying by a decimal that's less than 1 here. Alright, so again, 1 times 6,391. 1 times one group of anything is just anything. So this will not change. 6,391. That won't change. Alright? But now if I'm multiplying by a decimal that's less than 1, not a whole number, or a whole number by a decimal, my answer is going to get smaller. Because what is this decimal? It's 1/10. So what it's saying is I want 1/10 of that number. I don't want the whole thing. Alright, so it's going to get smaller. No, I don't want 1/10 of it. It's getting smaller by 1/10. Okay? So if I multiply by 1/10, if I move the decimal to the right to make the number bigger, this time the number is going to get smaller, so we're going to move the decimal to the left. Okay? And we move it to the left, the number of places that we have behind the decimal. So here we have 1 place behind the decimal. So we'll make the number smaller by moving it 1 place to the left. Well, where is the decimal in this number? That's right, it's at the end as an invisible decimal. So I move it 1 place to the left because I have 1 place behind the decimal, which gives me 639.1, 639 and 1/10. Nothing too difficult there. We're just moving the decimal to the left this time to make the number smaller. Now in this number, in this decimal, how many places are behind the decimal? That's right, there are 2 places behind the decimal. So we have to make this number smaller by 2 places. Okay? 1, 2, so move it 1, 2 places. Now my decimal is behind the 3. So I have 63 and 91 hundredths. Okay? Again, make it bigger, move it to the right. Make it smaller, move it to the left. Okay? Alright. Okay, so now let's look at it from a different perspective. Somebody decided that putting letters in math would be fun. So I want to know, what does n have to be? What number does that have to be in order to change $5.06 to $506 and no cents? First question, ask yourself, did it get bigger or did it get smaller? Absolutely, it got bigger. How many places did the decimal move to make it bigger? Well, the decimal was behind the 5. Now it's behind the 6. So how many places did it move? 1, 2 is correct. So we learned back in the patterns to move it 2 places, what did I multiply by? 100. Absolutely, good job. So this n has to be 100. Because I moved the decimal, I got 2 zeros, move it 2 places to the right to make it bigger. 1, 2, puts it right there, so I multiply by 100. Nice job. Okay? But look at the next one here. Look at this one. What happened to my number? It went from 8,034 to 80 and 34 hundredths. Did the number get bigger or smaller? You are correct. The number got smaller. So that means, did I multiply by 1/10 100,000 or 1/10 100th 1,000? That's right. We multiplied by a decimal less than 1. Let's ask ourselves, how many places did the decimal move? It went from behind the 4 to in front of the 3. So it moved 1, 2 places to the left to go smaller. So I have 2 places behind the decimal. So what decimal has 2 places behind? What decimal name has 2 places behind the decimal? 1/10. Okay? And it will take some practice, but we will get it. Alright? So let's look at a practice problem. Where would we use this in the real world? Alright, let's look at this problem in a real world situation. Okay? So marbles cost 50 cents per ounce. A box of marbles at the warehouse store contains 100 ounces of marbles. So what is the cost of the box of marbles? So if there are 100 ounces in the box, and each box, or each ounce is 50 cents, how do I find the cost of those boxes? I'm going to multiply, right? We're multiplying. We're multiplying by a decimal less than 1. How many places behind the decimal here? Or what we should say is I'm multiplying by 100. Okay, so we're making that number bigger or making that number smaller? That's right, we're making that number bigger because we're multiplying by 100. How many places do I move the decimal? 2 places, that's right, to the right to make it bigger. So I move it 1, 2 places. Now the decimal is behind the 0. So what is the cost of that box? that cost is $50. Well, think about that. If it was $1 an ounce, $1 times 100 would be $100. 50 cents is half of a dollar, so then half of 100 is 50. Makes sense, right? Okay, that's a real life situation. You could definitely run into this if you go shopping for, bulk items at a store, like a hardware store, nails or screws or things like that. They charge you by the ounce sometimes. So it's a very good real life application. Okay? Alright, so let's look a couple more practice problems. So which equation correctly shows the next product in this pattern? Okay? So let's look. One group of 6700s is 6700s. I multiply by 10, get the numbers getting bigger. I move it one place to the right to make it bigger. So one place to the right gives me 6 7/10. Perfect. Now multiplying by 100, getting bigger. Move it to the right. 2 places. 1, 2. Okay. So if I multiply by 1,000, then we move it 3 places to the right. Let's check this one. 1, 2, 3. So the answer should be 670 with a decimal behind it. Is that correct? No, that made the number smaller, right? Let's try this one again. 1, 2, 3. 670 decimal. 67 comma. Oh no, that's way too big, isn't it? Okay, so it can't be B. By 1,000, 1, 2, 3. Again, moving it to the right to get bigger. 1, 2, 3. 670 decimal. No, that's 6,700. That's not right. So let's look at D. It must be D, but let's make sure. 1, 2, 3 places to the right. 1, 2, 3 places to the right. 670, 670. This will be there. That is correct. D would be my answer. Okay. All right. Kind of getting the habit. Let's practice one more here. Let's look at one more good word problem. So Marla thinks her dog might not be feeling well. He ate 1/10 times as much dog food on Wednesday as he ate on Tuesday. If her dog ate 6 cups of dog food on Tuesday, how much did he eat on Wednesday? Now this is a pretty tough question. If you think about it, it's just wordy. But if I look at what it's telling me, he ate 1/10, so that means 1/10 of his food, which was 6 cups on Tuesday. He ate less on Tuesday than he did on Wednesday. He ate 1/10 of the food. Well, if he ate 6 cups, then what is 1/10 of 6? Alright, so ask yourself, am I going to make the number smaller or bigger? I'm multiplying a whole number by a decimal. Is my number going to be bigger or smaller? Absolutely, you're making the number smaller. So to make the number smaller, we move to the left to make it smaller. How many places are behind the decimal? 1. So how many places do I move the decimal? 1. Which way? To the left. Excellent. So here we know the decimal is behind that 6 right now. It's that imaginary decimal. If I move it 1 place to the left, it now becomes decimal 6. Okay? Alright. So now I'm going to let you practice. I have the practice sheet in your book that you'll work on. If you need to rewind and listen to some of this again, remember, making the number bigger, you multiply by moving it to the right. To make a number smaller, multiplying by a decimal, we're moving the decimal to the left to make the answer smaller. Alright? So good luck. Come and see me if you have questions. Okay? Alright.